All right, welcome to Get Through Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, we're talking about Rahvin. So I have my Snatch Specialist shirt on because that was his deal. He's a little compulsion, but it happens, which is actually one of the complaints from the books for me, but also it was what made him interesting. You don't get a whole lot of in the
Well,
book.
it's interesting that that's where you started because the reason I wanted to talk about this is in texting back and forth with my son as he has now started the Fires of Heaven, and he had some thoughts on that meeting at the very beginning of the Fires of Heaven where the Forsaken show up and have a little powwow, which they kind of sort of did at the end of episode one of season three in the show. Um, and as I said, I think the best part of being a parent for me right now is I get to be the one that says, Raffo, read and find out, son, read and find out. But it dawned on me that they did something interesting with Lord Gabriel that has to be a complete accident because I don't think they realized what they did. So in the book, Gabriel or Ravin, and you get this from some of the snide comments that Grendel and Lanfear make about how he likes to have his pets,
Hmm.
but also the way he's described physically. Ravin
It's
in the
massive.
books,
Yeah.
exactly. Ravin in the books is the Giga Chad who comes walking into the bar, flexing and preening,
He's
and
Gaston.
and yeah, exactly. That is a
Yeah.
great way to put it. The girls are all fawning over him, and he loves the attention. And you know, yeah, to make sure that he gets what he wants, he may slip a little something extra in their drink because by golly,
So
he's going to get what he
Bill
wants.
Cosby and Gaston had a child.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, when we first meet Lord Gabriel, it is clear that he is, in fact, I believe they call him the Queen's consort. It is clear that he is in a lesser position.
Hmm.
And the way he interacts with the children, with Gawain and Galad and Elaine, and he's almost the fun uncle type. Um, but also a bit of a he also gives kind of fatherly advice when it comes to dealing with your mother and dealing with the court and dealing with life, and um but it's all a sleazy facade in the show. So in the books, Ravin is the classic 80s, he's Johnny from Karate Kid.
Mm.
Okay? He's the bully jock, captain of the football team, etc. Because that was the trope of the bully back in the day. Well, similar to what they did in the first Spider-Man movie, the first MCU Spider-Man movie, Brock, the guy who eventually becomes Venom, he is one of Peter Parker's chief antagonists in the comic books, and he's the captain of the football team. He is a big dumb jock, and he's a jerk to Peter Parker, the nerd. Well, in the movie Homecoming, he is also a nerd. He's just a bigger nerd, and he comes from money. He is the spoiled rich kid would be valedictorian because that's the new bully.
Hmm.
Well, in Gabriel, the new bully, if you will, isn't the, you know, hit it and quit it Giga Chad Gaston. It's the ally. It's the male feminist. It's the quote unquote nice guy. But as you said, the reason nice guys finish last is because they're fake.
Hmm.
This is something you said a while ago, and it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks of, oh, that's a good point. Because even when I thought I was the nice guy, I wasn't being me. I was trying to be what I thought that person wanted me to be.
You're playing the story that's in their head. You're playing the
Exactly.
character in the story that's in their head. Yeah.
And so it has to be a total accident, but I found it amusing that they completely flipped Ravin's character but it worked perfectly because he's still thematically who he was in the books, which is this sleazy, manipulative player. However, well, let's stop there. Of what are your thoughts on that? Of the the male feminist ally is the new Giga Chad.
So are we mashing together book and show?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is where I was a little bit torn because yeah, in the books he is described as a certain way, and it made it make sense that Morghese would fawn over him, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the shirt open with his chest hair out, and all when people look at things from an optic standpoint, they want their queen to be with the obvious choice, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
was the obvious choice. But that made him what he was in the books because his real strength was that he was so subtle and he would play the long game and he would, do things under the surface. In fact, that was his undoing because he could have destroyed Rand with the power when they fought.
That's a good point.
Because what people don't realize and what you kind of have to read the cheat book to get is he was the most powerful Forsaken in the power, other than Ishii. And he, at that point in Rand's development, he could have just blew him up,
Oh yeah.
and he didn't. He tried to fight him in the world of dreams, throwing
Nynaeve.
piranhas at him, and
Exactly.
stuff like that.
Nynaeve gets the opening to attack him because he's sitting there in a hidden alcove, smiling, enjoying torturing Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And and then that help from Nynaeve is enough of a distraction for Rand to balefire him back hours.
Well, and you use the right term there, torturing, because he was the male Cimarech.
Mm,
And what men who manipulate women are doing is enjoying the fruits of their labor. They are watching this person struggle mentally to wrap around their relationship with this person, and they're enjoying it. They love it. They love the fact that they can manipulate somebody like that. It is like Simmerage caused physical pain. Men who are super sadist will cause a lot of mental pain. The Machiavellian types, the I want to watch her squirm for me types. And that's what he was. He was a sadist, but in a mental manipulation game, not the physical, because he could have done the physical's easy. It would have meant nothing to him.
that's a good
He
point.
he was
Yeah.
like 6'8".
He does not have small man syndrome at all.
Yeah, he was the freaking mountain, except good looking. He could have picked up the hammer and smashed anybody he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the other game, because now this is a challenge, and it's so satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got that impression from that actor in the show. Only they made him they found someone who's diminutive, so they actually made it make sense for the show, when I don't know if you could have pulled that off on screen, because you would have been so distracted by who he is physically that it would have taken amazing acting to pull off
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is what I look like, but this is how I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, at least in the scenes he was in, that actor was so good. That actor could have pulled off, I think, something like that. That dichotomy of I'm acting subservient even though I am a physical specimen,
Hmm.
if you will. But nitpicking, and I don't think this is nitpicking. I think this is a big deal. Um, I loved, that was one of the few things I really enjoyed about season three, especially as much as we ranted and hated Morghese in that first episode, especially.
Hmm.
Or second, when was no, it was the second episode, I think, but was the opening of the second episode.
Yes, it was the
When
second. Yeah.
when
Because
it showed her
I
taking the
teased it
throne.
on the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
one because I had already watched the beginning of the second.
Yeah, and I hadn't watched it yet, and forehead to the desk, just oy vey. And then so that's the opening to that episode, and then she shows up at the White Tower, and then oh, I know who Gabriel is because I've read the books. This is interesting, and I like that they're introducing him here. I like this actor. He's doing a good job of giving me that um I'm a nice guy, but deep down I'm sleazy subtext that I'm picking up because I've read the books. And if you haven't read the books, I think he's doing a good enough job that when you get the reveal, you'll see it after the fact, which I love, you know. But then I feel like they ruined it because at the very end of that episode, they have the Forsaken meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you didn't let it breathe. You didn't give any time for that Lord something is up with Lord Gabriel. What there's something's going on here. What is going on here? No, you just tell us. And you could have had that same meeting, especially if Lanfear was the one
You
kind
could have
of
done it like the Boars meeting where everybody's wearing masks. Yeah.
yeah, or you could have had somebody come in at the end and you don't show us who it is. And it's well, what do you think about all this? And then cut away before you actually show us who that was. You just know there is an unknown Forsaken here. There's another player here, and he's hidden somewhere, which is what Jordan did. It's we one of our nitpicks was he did that with Demandred for the entire freaking series. That by the time you got the reveal, it was very meh.
Yeah.
But there were other times where it was, you know, uh, just like Battlestar Galactica, the big thing about the third or fourth season, I don't remember which, is who are the final however many it was, five, four Cylons that had not been revealed. And it's, everyone is speculating. Could it be this person? Could it be that person? There were a couple of red herrings of, oh, we thought it was that person, but no, this person was acting weird because of that. And Jordan does that masterfully when it comes to where are the Forsaken hiding?
Yeah,
Um,
which is why I think Robin is so much more interesting than someone like Demandred, because Demandred was so simple.
yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't know if it was a fumble on Sanderson's part or if that was the way it was supposed to be the whole time.
Mhm.
But he's gone. He's disappeared. Everybody's wondering where he is. And oh, look, he's with the Sharans, the one place on the earth that we haven't been, right? And it was just kind of like you said, meh. But Robin, people ask me about because I work with athletes and stuff. They say, well, why does someone like Deshaun Watson do what he did? The guy could go into any club, any weekend, and go home with whoever he wanted, basically. But he molested massage therapists, right? Allegedly. I think he was proven guilty, but we'll say allegedly, just in case on camera here. Uh, why would someone that has that power do that? They can get their sexual gratification. That's the
Mhm.
point. They
Mhm.
can. So they have to do something that they have a possible chance of failure at because it becomes uninteresting when you can get everything you want. And that was Robin. He was, like you said, Giga Chad. He was amazingly good looking according to the descriptions. He was massive. He was strong. He was strong in the power. One of the strongest in the power. So he wanted what he couldn't have. And he wanted to do it in a way that didn't use those things that basically gave it to him. It's the rich kid doing drugs, right?
Mm.
They're trying to get a thrill that they're not allowed to have. It's Epstein Island, if you really break it down. What why are these powerful people pedophiles? Because that's what they can't have. They can go.
And yeah, and why can't I? I'm powerful.
Mhm,
You know, I'm the elite. I'm an aristocrat. I'm a modern day noble. I should be able to have whatever I want.
mhm. Yeah, and I want
I
I want this
deserve
thing.
this.
I
Yeah.
want this thing that's denied me. And I want and they will go do that. That's human nature, unfortunately.
And that's a good word, because you see that with a lot of the Forsaken of how dare you deny me anything?
Hmm.
Don't you know who I am? Don't you know what I am? And that is a big part of why they do what they do is how dare you deny me anything? Um, that was go back and watch our Grendel episode if you haven't, because that was a major part of her character, of where she came
Well, and she
from
was
the Ancient
bitter because
Legends.
she denied herself
Yeah,
for a big part of her life.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then said, "Screw this! I no, I should be able to have whatever I want because I deserve it."
Hmm.
Um, Back to Rahvin, it, the other place I thought they really fumbled it was towards the end there when I don't remember if it's the last or the second to the last episode. Elaine brings up Gabriel to Tom, and
Yeah.
Tom just says flat out, "There is no such person." Okay, first of all, that's out of character, definitely out of character for the books. But even in the show, what little of us you've shown of him, he is far more savvy than that. He's going to think, he's going to ask questions, he's going to mull it over. And he just says flat out, "There is no person, you've been manipulated, he must be a Forsaken."
Yeah.
Way to let it breathe, guys. But then also, you
Again,
have
I think this is in the idea that they're thinking one more season tops
they are rushing big
because
time now.
they have to rush that plot line.
But back to our big, you know, outside of the problems we have with the show's methods of adaptation, the things that they have done within the show, one of our bigger criticisms uh, in general is okay, but then why do you keep making stuff up? Why do you keep adding new things? You could, if you cut out that extra stuff that you invented, you could put in more of the source material and still have time to condense the story.
Hmm.
Uh, so for instance, we have a comment that from our last Wheel of Time episode when we were talking about Moghidian and Asmodean and God is love. Hello again. Um, this I didn't even think about this, but I think I read the yeah, I did. I read the passage where you first meet Malgidian and you don't know it's her. It's a servant named Gildan, and Leandrin is horrid to her because she's a horrible person. Because back to deserve and deny. No, I can do whatever I want. How dare you peon even look me in the eye?
Hmm.
Um, Oh my goodness, I hated how untriggered Leandrin was by the servants in the show. She can't just be envious and contemptuous, self-hating asshole. No, she has to be a SA, because you can't say the word out loud or you get banned on YouTube, survivor turned murderer. I don't understand this obsession with portraying survivors as ruined goods. Hurt people, sure, but it's often that people who grow up or find themselves in terrible situations have the most capacity for compassion. I just don't get it.
Yeah, go ahead and give your comment, and then I'll piggyback on that.
Well, we talked about this when I played that clip from of Jordan talking about Nietzsche,
Hmm.
as he makes that point that obviously not every abuse survivor grows up to be an abuser. That's just math, because it wouldn't take that many generations before everyone was an abuser, because you would have this exponentially increasing effect.
Hmm.
But of abusers, there is a high proportion that were abused.
Hmm.
um I understand the necessity of making a villain understandable. I don't. I where I think you're the point you're kind of going around here. God is love is there's a difference between making a villain understandable. Thanos in the movies is actually, for any of you nerds out there who have read the Infinity War comics, um, they did a better job with Thanos in the movies than in the. He's just a nut. He's just to mix my nerd metaphors here, he is the epitome of chaotic evil in the
Mhm.
comics. He's just a psycho. He actually has an understandable drive and motivation in the movies, but he's not sympathetic. And there's a difference there. Is the problem I think you're really having with Leander, and it's not just that they're trying to make this damaged person. It would be one thing if they were showing you this to make you understand why she is the way she is, but they're clearly trying to make her sympathetic.
Mhm. Well, they're trying to spread a message.
That too.
Okay. There's that part, and they're using this plot line for this, which I think takes away from Leandrin from the books, just plain bad people from the books. That separates understandability and sympathy from just pure evil.
Mm.
And when we're talking about a story as epic as The Wheel of Time, you have some understandable parts. Carradine in the books, he made a bad decision early in his life, and now they're holding him by basically threatening to kill all his family. We get that with his meeting with the Murdral, right? Yeah, so maybe they're combining the Carradine and the Leandrin story, a little bit. But at the same time, I think it's too based for that, where the writers couldn't just have a purely evil woman for the sake of just being purely evil. They didn't even do it with Mogedion, really, which I mean, she's
She's
basically
just
just an evil
nuts.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They made her insane, which the Mogedion from the books, I never got the impression she was insane. I got the impression she was crafty. I got the impression she knew she was weak and needed advantages, but I never got the impression she was insane.
Yeah.
And so they took any like just pure evil out of all the female characters and tried to make it understandable by she's abused as a child or whatever, all of these things. And it's like, yeah, that exists. That's that would be more the norm in that kind of environment than the exception to the rule. And yeah, we okay, that makes sense. Fine, put it in there, but don't take all my screen time. She's just a bad person.
Well, also to 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 your point, God is love is the um let me go back so I can quote it directly. Hurt people, sure, but it's often that people who grow up or find themselves in terrible situations have the most capacity for compassion.
Mhm.
That is true. And so Leandrin as one side of that spectrum wouldn't be as jarring, infuriating, whatever, if you had another side. And they actually have that in this crappy show with Matt, something we've ranted about a lot. Matt's mother is an alcoholic because his father in the show is a philandering jerk. Well, Matt rises above, except you have to infer that because they never give Matt his moments to be heroic.
Mhm.
So if and you have him there in the same place as Leandrin for the way you're constructing this story, it would have been the perfect counterpoint. Or you could have brought in a little bit of more of Nynaeve's background when she was confronting Leandrin, because she also grew up rough. She was also hurt young because they had that flashback where her parents were killed by bandits. So, yeah, she too could have grown up incredibly bitter, and now she has this incredible power. She can impose her will on people, and she's not. But you don't really get that in their confrontation with each other. It's just an appeal to Leandrin's compassion, or
Mhm.
what Nynaeve hopes is Leandrin's humanity, rather than drawing the direct contrast of don't think you're the only one who's been hurt. I we've all been hurt. I've been hurt too. Okay. We rise above. And then that would have made
Not only
not
we rise above, we make sure other people don't go through the same thing we did.
exactly. And that would have really elevated Nynaeve's character, but then also made it that much more impactful. The one thing I really liked about that confrontation that I pointed out at the time was I actually liked it when Leandrin said, I should have let I should have let his father smother him, kill him when he was an infant, like he wanted, because all that child did was hold me down and hold me back. It's like, oh wow, that's dark. And at
Yeah,
the
but
time,
there's a deeper there's a message there too.
yeah,
It's the pro-abortion message.
I don't know that,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, don't
yeah,
forget that.
it's hard to ignore that. But to the comment that got us here in the first place, um it's also building on that you're supposed to be sympathetic to this person because she is so damaged. She regrets not killing or letting her child be killed because that was a weakness. Um, and so that does kind of bring down my original point of, oh, hey, that's a good thing of, but oh yeah, there's all this extra baggage with it. So it's not as good as it could have been. That is faux show.
hmm God is Love also commented on our last episode, which was the three ladies.
Oh, I
And
missed that one.
it's kind of a long comment. I'm gonna let you read over that real quick. Uh, or I'll read it out loud. Hey guys, busy with a reread, so I may very well be forgetting. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's 14 books to get through, so
Mhm.
you know. I get when you say Min was the one. Yeah, the one, the romantic one, I would say.
Mhm.
So to clarify my words, she represented a certain thing that the other two did not. She's the relationship we part of and witness growing. Avi and Elaine always felt unfulfilled for me. Yeah, I think that was one of our big themes too.
Mhm.
Even with veins of gold, especially Abby, because we don't get a romantic reconciliation between the two. They spend all this time together in a love-hate thing. They're intimate like once, then business as usual. Then they separate for a while, and when they're next together, Min is there, and it feels like Abby takes a step back to let that happen. Except we get the scene where the Avienda just walks in there and is like, "You're gonna do me,"
Mhm.
right at the end, which I thought
Mhm.
was actually a detriment to the whole relationship,
Mhm.
personally. I know Sanderson kind of had this idea in his mind, and he wrote her pretty well, except for that scene. I thought was pretty lacking. But also, yes, she's busy taking care of her people, but I don't know. I would have liked to see the polygamous aspect of the quad, the growing together in our pairings part. Yeah, as like a big happy
Yeah.
family. I'm assuming he's saying. Then she
Yeah,
goes
because
back.
well, hold on. To that point, that is the one part of the relationship that we do really get, which is I think what makes it so jarring is that to the first part of your point, we the reader grow with Min and Rand because we see them so much. They get a lot of screen time, um, especially in the last half of the series. So we get that. And then separately, we, the reader, get to grow with Elaine and Avienda as near sisters who become first sisters.
Mhm.
But why don't we ever combine the two? We never really combine these two to make a fully fledged whatever the heck this is. As,
Well,
as
what?
you say, one big happy family or whatever.
Well, one thing I actually do get a slight vibe of in the books that I wish Sanderson would have fleshed out more is a little bit of jealousy
Hmm.
of Elaine and Avienda towards Min.
Hmm.
But it didn't flesh out. You just have them all getting together at the end and being like, "Oh, we know the secret. Haha, he's alive."
Hmm.
And you never get that you kind of get a little vibe of it until the Sanderson books that Elaine and Avienda actually are a little bit jealous of the relationship of Min and Rand because you never have them all becoming like all first sisters together. You have a ritual, but even then, it's just kind of Min's thrown in there
Yeah, yeah.
because Elaine and Avienda have their relationship, but Min is, I mean, I think they even
She's
say it in their
definitely the
heads
third
as,
wheel. She's definitely
yeah.
the third wheel with the girls.
Hmm. And that
And
would
I
actually have made for an interesting storyline that,
and I
oh, yeah, we're all fated to have this thing, but
yeah,
we're actually jealous of you.
yeah. And I feel like I don't know where you are in your reread at this point, but pay attention in Knife of Dreams uh because there are a couple scenes there where Avienda rejoins Rand's group and Min is there and Min is trying to talk to Avienda, especially after Rand goes dark, and Avienda's kind of wrapped up in her own thing. And I feel like Jordan was trying to set up uh, more of a relationship with them, not
Hmm.
just between Min and Avienda, but then how that affects and they use that for their relationship with Rand as well. And yeah, I don't know how much of it was time and how much of it was skill and just finding the voice of these characters, but that ball does kind of get dropped uh in the last books, as he says here on the last sentence of that first paragraph. The growing together in our pairings part. Then she goes back to Viridian. Then next thing, it's Shade of My Heart. And I'm like, huh? Okay, yeah, cool. I mean, I get it, but it's not really satisfying.
Yeah, except I put myself in a lot of precarious situations, and I uh, I feel that a little bit because there's been a lot of times where I've pushed my own emotions in a certain direction because life is going a certain way. And I've been in relationships with people who did the same thing. And then you reconnect at some point and you're like, yeah, I always did feel that way. I just pushed it away. I just kind of ignored it because life didn't allow for it. And we're pretty good at that as human beings. We compartmentalize a lot. And just and then you kind of reconnect with somebody and you're like, God, I kind of felt this the whole time. I just didn't let myself feel this. And that's what I was trying to get from the Avienda scenes in the later books. I just don't think Sanderson has the relationship experience to pull it off. I think Jordan, from your revelations last time, I think Jordan probably had a little bit more life experience
Oh yeah.
in that department, and I think I could probably write it a little, well, maybe not stylistically write it better, but
Mhm.
from an experience perspective. But yeah, I've done that. And I can think of actually past relationships where I'm like, you know what? If I reconnected with that person, I would be, I would probably pick up right where I left off. And that's not a bad thing. That means you picked the right person at that point. But yeah, I didn't get that same vibe. I think he made a comment that he's younger.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so yeah, life. This is the best way to piss a woman off, by the way, God is love, is no matter how smart you are, experience matters. Because
Mhm.
especially a young woman, they will want to be ahead of their skis in their knowledge, and it's like experience does matter. And I do this in school because everybody's like, "Oh, well, how did you know so much?" I'm like, "I'm 20 years older than you.
Mhm.
That's how I know so much. Think of everything you've learned in the last 20 years, and then double it, and then add to the fact that I'm constantly trying to learn, so you probably can triple it." And yeah, experience matters. All the best to you and your relationships, my friend. Keep us posted because we need things to talk about. And back to
Yeah.
Robin, he had it all. He was gifted, and so he was also evil. So now we just talk about Leandrin for a long time. That's what made Robin so special. Was he was the person that was gifted with everything in life: height, good looks, power, power in the power, probably riches. I'd have to reread his. I don't think it mentions it in his biography, but probably riches at the time. he was in the freaking first age, so he had
Hmm.
comforts beyond belief, and it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. So he had to be evil.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a good point since we kind of went on a tangent because of the comments there about Leandrin. So the in the books there is a an interesting contrast there because they are both arrogant and feel owed, feel like life owes them, feel like they deserve. But Leandrin is so consumed with that and with bitterness that it is ultimately her undoing. And she suffers a not so pleasant fate. Whereas Rahvin, he also is undone by his arrogance, but until that point, he's living large
Yeah,
because he has
I,
the skill and the
I
experience.
brought up Deshaun Watson, Massage Watson, but he is the Epstein of the story.
Mm.
That is his part. He is that guy that is entangled in everything, just evil beyond belief, and willing to do the thing to be satisfied with life, and probably still wasn't. And it was his undoing.
According to his Wikipedia entry, Uh, Raven always loved power and was envious of anyone who held more than him. Interestingly, little is known of him before he joined the Shadow. So there might not be much there of his life during the Age of Legends. Um, but where Samael and Demandred were the warrior generals, Ravin much preferred diplomacy over outright attack. Ravin would most frequently use compulsion and subtle manipulation instead of force, which again is interesting because as far as the raw power rankings go, Luz, Theron, and Ishamael were the only ones stronger than him.
And not even by much.
Yeah.
Not even
And
by
so
much.
so
Yeah.
to your point, it's about the game to him.
Hmm.
Yeah, so he could have been probably Demandred or Samael, only better, but where's the fun in that? Where's the fun in that? All right. Well, another little quickie there for you to talk a little more overthinking Wheel of Time, and then this will probably, unless we have some comments or something else comes up, and we think, here's a thought. We'll there's always more to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always more to talk about. So if we have a thought, if someone has a comment that we want to explore, we'll throw in some Wheel of Time episodes, but this will probably be our last one for a while. And then we're gonna switch to probably Dostoevsky
Yep.
here
I
in a
need to
few
get started
weeks.
reading that too. So, all right. Anything else?
Nope, we will see y'all next time. There got a lot going on in real life in the next couple of weeks, so
Yeah. Yeah.
we may have a week or two off, and then we'll get back to it.
All right. Later, guys.